Our conversation today is on relationships, and this is part of our 6-month embodiment journey. And all of the people that are in this course have submitted some questions where they have curiosities and want to explore together with you how it is to be in an awakened relationship, how to embody awakening in your closest, most intimate relationships. They want to learn more about how that is for you, and then we have some specific questions. I met Isaac, I think in 1999, quite a while ago, and then the year later I met Meike. Did I say it right? Good.
Wonderful.
Because your name was different when we met, if you remember.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I'm getting used to that. So you're in Australia now, and I'm in California. So we're having this long distance conversation, but already it feels very close. So good to see both of you, and thank you for agreeing to be part of the program.
Such a pleasure.
Great. So how about, do you want to say a little bit about your relationship, and then we'll go ahead and jump in with some questions. Would you like that?
Sure. The only difficulty is that I don't believe in relationships.
Okay, good. So say more about that.
Okay, um, because as far as I can see, a relationship is a noun, and what I know is there's relating, but as soon as it turns into a noun, it's actually just a mental construct. It doesn't actually exist. And the difficulty is with calling it something is that then you can try and work on it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in truth, there's just relating moment by moment, and you're either relating as the beloved to life, or relating to the moment as the beloved, or uh, you're relating through a filter of ideas. And you know, when we've looked very deeply at what people consider a relationship, what it turns out to be is a bunch of spoken and unspoken agreements whose function is to try and avoid pain.
Yeah.
And I haven't found that to be very useful.
Uh-huh. Oh, that doesn't sound very satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what a nice way to look at it. So more about relating and not
Yes.
not setting it in a container to
Exactly.
be something.
Exactly. And making promises and stuff like that. Because what I see is, I mean, you know, just the way my sense of humor expresses it is, I ask people, how many people still make New Year's resolutions? And everybody laughs because very few people still do it. And I ask why not? And they say because, you know it doesn't. They don't last. We don't keep them. And I say, yet we make promises to someone else, and we think we're going to keep them, and then we get into the story of if somebody doesn't keep their agreements or something, then we feel betrayed as if they did something to us, rather than just you honoring each person's journey and knowing. I mean, either an expression of totality that we call a person
Mm-hmm.
is functioning in integrity or not, and if they're functioning in integrity, then what else can I do but honor every movement that seems right for them, rather than having some idea of what that should look like or any of that stuff. Because I see, even for myself, moment by moment, I can't impose it on myself. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I said a lot there. You want to speak something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's hear some more.
So, on the level of living with each other, um, it's a big, big gift to live with somebody who has the same interest. And I guess that is something, that relates to everything. If two people come together who are interested in reading or writing or swimming or whatever it is, it makes it more it makes it even richer. So having that interest of truth has been the biggest gift, I would say, in sharing that.
And not only truth, but embodying truth.
Embodying truth.
Yes.
Yeah, just the whole.
Yes.
Just all of it. The nothing and the everything.
Right. So would you say that in that way that it's kind of then you're like just the same way Isaac was saying, that you're taking the individual out of it. It's almost like as if, well, yes, there's a he and there's a she, or maybe there's two he's and two she's, whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
But there's the third thing in a sense, almost. There's the truth.
Yes.
There's a, like somebody in the group brought up a question of, would you dedicate the relationship to your highest self or something?
Yeah.
It's
yes. And that's a beautiful question in a way. But that in the end, I mean, and that I guess is the deepest truth, there's nobody even there who could devote the self to the self or wherever. I guess it's more where we hang, where we cling, where we notice that we cling onto patterns that go automatically.
Yes.
The moment it becomes unconscious, and there is just such a, I would call it grace, that there are so-called two beings that can remind each other that it's actually, that we're just here. So we have no clue whatever comes up. And it's been a journey for both of us, because these bodies are running on automatic. Bodies or life runs on automatic. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? And then there is that conscious mind, or whatever we want to call that, that develops all of a sudden. We also have no clue how that happened, but it sees where it becomes a trap, or where it goes dead, where it goes into automatic.
Yeah, because what we know is that when you relate intimately with life, with any expression of totality, all the unconscious conditioning is going to play.
Yes.
And when you relate with somebody that's intimate, the deepest patterns are going to show up. All the patterns that relate to your upbringing and your parents and all that stuff are going to play. And usually there's a huge amount of energy in trying to avoid those, rather than welcoming as an opportunity. And so if you have an idealized idea of what relating should look like, then there's no possibility to really deeply explore the shadow, deeply explore the opportunities that arise. There's always trying to, get it to meet Hollywood standards or something.
Yeah. Yeah, to be in a constant honeymoon or something like that.
Or something like that. Rather than the opportunity of just, how can I say, being available to all the subtle nuances of compensations and avoidances and ways in which like this, trying to get away from actually the real goal, the real really meeting yourself as totality in all its disguises.
Right. So having said that, that sounds like to me, and it brings up one of the questions that somebody put forth, and that's about, would you say then to be in intimate relating, to have a partner, is actually beneficial, can be very beneficial for liberation, for really being able to unpack, see your patterns, see your conditioning, and all of that?
I don't think it makes a difference being in or being out. It's just like there's every moment is that opportunity. And so it's neither in the way nor not in the way. It's just, some people are drawn to it and some people aren't. It's just, Anyway, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, that gives permission to go either way.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah. So, and I'm just speaking from my own experience again. I'm not sure if it was possible in relating with someone where it was a relationship. So where everything was actually on automatic.
Uh-huh.
So what I see now is, just having that interest in common. It's like, we can fall back into that again and again, whatever comes up. Because sometimes it's really, really strong. These unconscious patterns are so, so strong, so painful, and feel so existential, feel so threatening, actually, that it's very, 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 very hard to stay present. So, and we have learned it, actually, and we're still learning. It's a live organism. That's why we took it out of the word relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship is so woof,
Yes.
constant in a way. So relating keeps it just so much more alive and in the not knowing.
Yes.
What we have in common, we have that common ground in a way of we know that everything that keeps us in separation is an unconscious pattern playing. So whenever that knowing is evolving more and more and more and more. So whenever it happens like that, we are separate beings, then there is the opportunity to hold hands in it.
Uh-huh. Can you give a good example of that, like a time where one is going unconscious, so to speak, or something really strong is coming up?
I have,
and how you are with that, how
also, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, just to show it, to give a little example.
Also simple, where it doesn't feel that it's so strong, like, it's kind of, but what comes to mind is, Isaac didn't like it if I left the pen unwashed on the stove. So he would kind of, always kind of, and it would touch, so it would touch something there and it would touch something here. And deeper down, you're not seeing me. You're not seeing, I really don't like it. And I asked you a few times and you're still not doing it. So, and from my side, it would mean maybe, but I'm not doing it because I don't see you. I'm just, I just don't find it so important to do it.
Yeah.
So, and we've spent time on it. It's a simple thing, but we spent time on, teasing each other again and again. And all of a sudden that was seen. It was seen, wow, even with these little tiny things, you would think it's not a subject even to talk about. We could see that something deeper was touched that just was asking for presence.
Yes.
So
makes sense.
So we could reach out to each other's hand and say, oh, I see. I just see. So, and a smile would come into our face. Just through that. Yeah. I know you're wishing me well. I know there is no separation. I know you're on my side. The whole loving space would open up. And we would hold hands. I know you don't do it because you don't love me, or whatever sentence you have.
Right.
So there's something else that just makes it worthwhile exploring, which is, in our culture we've grown up with this idea that people have a choice, and whenever we believe that someone had a choice and they're making a choice that upsets us, then what happens is an upset happens. And the upset, when I look deeply into that, its function is to try and get a person to recognize the error of their ways. And there's a willingness to suffer in order to get a person to recognize, it's like there's a willingness to suffer and be upset so that the person becomes a better person, in our view.
Right.
But it's all based on the idea of choice.
Yes.
If we don't get upset with like someone that you could say has a condition, and you realize they can't be different than that.
Yes.
We don't. But as soon as we think they could be different, so there's a deep seeing that whatever's playing, whenever there's an upset, the upset isn't with the person. The upset is with unconscious patterns that are playing in the person.
Yes.
And what's upsetting us isn't us, but it's an unconscious pattern in us. So it's a pattern upset with a pattern.
Yes.
But most often that gets taken personally and believed to be you and me or something like that.
Yes.
So once
And then
that's
the circle is going. Yes.
then it's a vortex and it just spins on itself. Yeah?
Yes.
But in that seeing, look, actually there's just an opportunity. Any time an upset happens, it's not personal to that person and it's not personal to you. It's just an opportunity. And that's then whichever way you kind of figure out, once that's clear, to kind of, okay, how do we bridge that or play with it, whatever. It's like sense of humor is great. When you lose your sense of humor, it's not very funny.
Yeah.
So
That's really. Yes.
And the other thing that I noticed in calling something a relationship is that, like when we meet here, I don't feel any boundaries. I just feel like there's deep intimacy.
Yeah.
And I recognize that very often as soon as we call it a relationship, there's this idea that you're not supposed to have that intimacy with anyone else. That's supposed to only be with your primary partner.
Yes.
Because we get intimacy and sexuality confused.
Yes.
But ultimately, if we look very deeply, awareness is just awareness. None of this actually means anything or touches anything. But from the level of the nervous system, when we were first born, we were conditioned while we were still in the womb. The way our moms related to, like different sense impressions and stuff. Already her system was contracting and, like certain smells, certain energies, certain colors, certain events. And that was already conditioning us. But after birth, our survival depended on our caregivers recognizing our signals. And we only had one signal, which was to cry. And if they had a dualistic focus, it means that they were seeing us as an object and they were guessing at what our signals were. Instead of feeding us from the inside, recognizing that we were an experience to them and knowing us from the inside out, they would have known us from the outside in. And for example, like if a baby's crying, a baby doesn't have the capacity to self-soothe.
Right.
So, if a parent lets a baby cry out or, like whatever, the baby actually goes into a trauma response. It goes into actually what's called a collapse because they can't self-soothe. It's existential for the baby. So for most of us, we grow up with this sense or feeling of never having been truly seen and felt.
Yeah.
Because when we truly seen and felt, something in us relaxes, something in us knows all is well. But if we don't get that sense of being seen and felt, there's a yearning for it that stays with us for the rest of our lives, which so often gets entangled with the idea of relationship and with sexuality. So there's what happens is there's a reaching to try and get seen and felt, but because it's confused, most often it gets rejected.
Yeah.
So there's a reach to get connection, but there's also a defending at the same time against the rejection that we know is coming. So most expressions of totality called people, signals are very confused and mixed. There's a reaching and a defending at the same time. And so that's very confusing to most of us because we just don't get, you think somebody wants to connect and then you go and they don't really, or they do and they don't. I mean, it's confusing, even with your intimate partner.
Yes, we see this all the time.
Yeah, we see it all the time. So it's good to understand that that's not personal, that's actually universal.
Yes.
If our system never got that deep sense of being felt and seen, it's going to yearn for it.
Yes. Yes.
And so what happens is when finally, like if we meet another nervous system that through exploration and through maturation, I could say, being in the fire, that capacity they have that information. Their nervous system actually feels, felt, and seen.
Yes.
Something in our nervous system then can relax.
Can relax, yes.
Yeah. And oftentimes what I find with people is I actually have to ask, in this moment, do you feel felt, and seen? Mm-hmm. Because even though it's happening, they don't consciously recognize it. So the unconscious patterns are playing of trying to get connection and defending and all that stuff.
Yes.
But the moment they cognize, okay, wow, in this field I'm felt and seen, something deeply at the level of the nervous system relaxes, which enables, what I would call true embodiment.
Yes. Yeah, so continue with that. So let's stay on that because it's really, really good. It relates to many of the questions that have come forth. And to say then, how does a person, if they don't feel felt or seen, say they carry this in the nervous system, and they yearn for that kind of connection, but they're in the game of hide and seek, so to speak, coming out and going back, coming out and going.
And trying to get it in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get it. Yeah. So here, where is the turnaround? Okay, so, where is the turnaround to come back to the self? So how does a person really get that it's going to come from here?
Yeah. No, that's not true. It doesn't even.
Well, not even. But how to stop the pattern?
It needs another nervous system, Nancy, Prajna, in my view.
It needs another nervous system.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Meike talking now. She's good at that stuff.
So tell us about the other nervous system.
Yeah. At first, I'm just talking again about my own experience, was recognizing that is how it plays, that life is playing in a certain way and doesn't make it easy to feel connection all the time. Because somehow our systems, life evolved in a way that most of our systems, not all of them, because I know in some tribes, there is that connection to earth, and there's also the connection to Great Spirit or whatever they call that. So there is connection. But for the civilization, let me just call it civilization, for most of us, there is a sense of separation from nearly day one. So I just had a talk with some women, and all of them, some came already with a sense of separation. They don't know that it's any time has been different for them, and others experienced it with a strong trauma in the early childhood. Mm-hmm. So if we don't know that the nervous system wires or gets wired by itself again in this way, just to survive all circumstances, then, we get that strong sense that this is who we are, which most of us have learned. We just talk. It's so difficult.
It's taken personally and identified with.
Yes. And suffer over it.
So that was for me a very, after having had a recognition of who I am in truth, let's say, then you still deal with all that conditioning in the nervous system, and at one point you ask yourself, what's going on here? You deeply know, and your nervous system or your body is in a mess. Mm-hmm. So just that recognition that it's just happens by itself somehow gave a big relief in here.
Mm-hmm. By using the patterns happen by themselves.
Yes, the patterns happen by themselves.
Yeah, it's not personal.
It's not personal.
It's not a choice. It's not like an individual didn't choose it and then exactly. Clearly.
Life just did it, if you want to say it like that, life just did it to survive.
Right.
So that's
there's
just
a million, like a multi-million influences going into one, you can't pin it down to any one thing ever. Yeah.
No, never. Yeah. So that gave such a big relief here, just that seeing. And, that's kind of my mission in a way. Everybody needs to know that, so that we get out of that stress having to change ourselves or the other one. Yes. Or feeling bad about ourselves, feeling wrong about ourselves, just the whole story, which most people are hanging out in. So, I mean, I know some people say this should go into school so that every child knows that this is just life doing its thing. But anyway, that's another story.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, what happens is people have a recognition of themselves as awareness, but the nervous system's capacity to embody that is practically zero. And so then there's a beating of yourself up, like how come I don't live it, or there's like inviting in a way, or this doesn't matter. And so often what happens is like there's a dissociation that happens from the nervous system not having this information.
Right.
That's often mistaken for awareness.
Yes, and the
Because
other
it's it's disconnected. It's wide and it's spaced out, but it's just not it's not here right here. And
yes.
there's no intimacy. There's no connection.
Yes,
what
and
we
often
found.
and often what happens too, I just want to add to that, is that especially in so-called, if somebody wants to call their relating a relationship and call it on top of that a spiritual one, is then they can put on top of it all kinds of concepts about, well, if you're spiritual, then you could just drop it, or you could, you could read it, you know what I mean? But that happens so often, and it gives, it just puts up more of a screen.
And then this whole idea of dropping it rather than actually really being present to it.
Yes,
there's this whole idea that it's not real, so just ignore it.
Right, like it's only your story, so to speak. So kind of just get over it. That whole kind of languaging that actually, is really sets you back.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and those people who have had these strong trauma responses, you find them in spiritual circles.
Yes. Of course.
Mostly.
Of course.
They're so familiar with spacing out.
Yeah, and they want to come home. They want to come to rest. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. To relax, to finally relax.
To finally be seen somewhere so that the nervous system gets the information it's actually longing for so that it can be here.
Yes.
Just simply being here.
Another thing that's useful just to bring to this conversation is that very often when people are reaching to get connection, the reach, because of this of the mixed signals, the reach is very clumsy. So it's designed actually to get rejected. Because at least when it gets rejected, it gets some form of attention. Like a kid would rather get a smack than no attention.
And it is confused. It is so confused. It's like, and I mean, I'm just as an example, when a little one that can't think yet. So the first we are, I think the first year is about, we are in deep sleep brainwave state, later on in dream brainwave state. So we are in totally different realities even. But anyway, so if there is a not being seen and felt by the caregiver, it touches such a deep, deep, deep existential pain because it feels like, because it is in no space and no time yet, reality yet, it touches that being left alone by life, being rejected from the get-go. So it touches such a deep, deep, deep pain. So even if later on there might be a reach from someone that is even real, it has to come so slowly because the other one has to reject. The pain is so unbearable, it never wants to touch that again.
And because that pain is so unbearable, that's why most murders happen between intimate partners.
Absolutely.
And that's why there's so much violence, is because when that pain gets touched, if there's no maturity to be able to really meet it, it's like the brain goes to fight, flight, and whatever it takes to get away from that pain, it's going to do.
It is
and you look at the statistics, it's huge, the amount of violence that happens in intimate relating. It's huge, and it's not like you can decide against it. It's that pain gets touched,
Yeah.
then we don't
And then,
know
yeah,
what we do actually.
we're,
Right.
we're in
Total,
the reptilian brain, you know. It's
we
just
go on total automatic and at these bodies, and it is so painful. I don't know if there's any worse that we can experience than that felt sense of being alone, being left alone, that there's nobody there. For a body, it is, wow, I'm just seeing that again and again in groups. And when that gets touched, it's like, whoa, don't want to go there at all. So what I found is we have to approach that so slowly and gently, that a nervous system that sits kind of in hibernation, it's these kind of organizations, they sit there still somewhere, but they're just barely surviving, so we have to approach them so slowly and gently, otherwise they will never come out. It's too much.
Yes.
It will be too much.
Yes.
So that's what we kind of dealing with very, very often in relating, or then what we call relationship. Because there is still this longing to connect.
Right.
And so we move around, just bear with me for one moment. We move around and we look, maybe it's you who can give that to me. We don't speak like that, but it's kind of, I'm attracted there because maybe this one can give it to me. Or are you the one? Or are you the one? Or are you the one? Kind of checking out every system. Maybe I get that information there.
And a lot of times it's like entangled with sexuality.
Yeah.
And the other thing is there's a big confusion around hurt. Everyone's experienced hurt in their lives.
Yes.
But if we believe that someone else hurts us or that we're hurting ourselves, then when hurt happens, there's going to be blame, shame, and guilt, and there's no possibility to explore it.
Yes.
If we can see that the only thing that actually hurts us are unconscious filters, it's not the other person, or it's not ourselves. Because if you think look, first of all, if we think we can hurt somebody else, then we don't feel free to really be authentic and to be ourselves. We're always trying to filter, what do I need to be so that you'll love me? What do I need? And that starts to feel like a prison.
Yeah.
And we blame the other person for that, even though, like it's this funny story that we're confused about hurt. We just, we think that we can hurt somebody else.
Yeah, which comes from that original confusion in a way.
Anyway, that's so rich with information.
Yeah, I mean, there's we're going in
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It really just connects to everything that we're talking about. So it's all good. It's all good. And then, so when you say that this can be remedied, so to speak, through, it requires another. You said another. Now, when you say that, I know that it can't be done in isolation. That's we're coming out of isolation.
Yes.
So, but it could be done, say, with a what's the word I want to use? It doesn't need to be a partner. It can be a meeting. You need a meeting.
Usually, that's the most difficult.
Yeah, that's the most difficult. So first can happen just through meeting another who is able to be there.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And one of the things, whether it's true or not, someone once asked Buddha, how important is the Sangha? How important is the community of people that have this interest? And he said, it's not important, it's everything.
It's not important, it's everything?
It's everything. So for me, part of what happens when we do meetings is we start generating a field of attention where everybody's feeling and seeing each other.
Yes.
So that it starts, because mostly when you're in company, the field of attention is dualistic, and so that nobody feels seen and felt. And so to start generating a field where feeling and seeing is happening, because also our culture is touch phobic.
Yes.
And if you ever look at animals. When we love going to the game reserve, they're always licking each other and rolling on each other and touching each other. But for
No
us,
boundary.
we gotten this funny thing. You touch somebody, you want to say, "Oh, excuse me," it's like,
Not
Yeah.
true that there's no boundary.
yeah,
Not true in a way. There is boundary, but it's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear where everything is, and it's clear where the nothing is.
Yeah, but it's not an added protection is more what I meant to say.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are family related. A lion doesn't go and cuddle with every lion. It's just in their
pride.
In their pride.
And they're what?
So in their pride.
A pride of lions.
The pride of lions.
Oh yeah,
they're lions. So they are family related, which we are also in a way. But
Yes.
So
Okay,
which sangha means in a way again. It is family.
Yeah. Yeah, being seen.
Yes.
In a real way.
In a real
And what's
open way.
interesting, just going back to Hawaiian culture, when someone would get sick, they would bring all the people around that person together, and they would look at any ideas that the person was having about them. They called it ho'oponopono, because they saw that a quality of attention was enough. We know this now from family constellation work. A certain quality of attention is enough to make somebody sick or depressed or suicidal, just from a habit of attention within the family dynamic.
Yes.
And so then how do you start to generate and invite a different quality of attention when Sangha comes together? So it's not just only about, in my view, it's not only about recognizing who you are, but it's also about noticing the habit of attention of how we meet the moment, because we, like language turns everything into objects. So we're used to looking at objects rather than the recognition that everything's actually an experience to us in this moment. The whole world is an experience. And that's happening in us already. And once we're starting to feel that or recognize that, and then it stops being that we're relating to something outside of ourselves, we're relating to our experience, you could say, like that. Because it's all here. And it changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now say there's a question here from somebody who wants to know how to make that leap. So there's after listening to this, everybody's listening, there's going to already be a shift. I can see that to relating instead of looking at, some kind of relationship happening, but looking at the relating itself. So say a person has been doing all kinds of these games, and then what is the step out of that, for being seen? But how do you I think the question is more this: how do you attract that same interest to yourself? To come to the commonality of having the same interest. For somebody who isn't in any intimate relating and wants to be and has tried all of the dating programs, all the online, all of the going to the different sanghas, and already you spoke about so much, which is something to germinate and really be with and let all that sink in, because the nervous system wanting to be addressed, and the whole thing of putting yourself out but expecting rejection. All of those things that still might be going on. So what would you say for a person, just be coming into a degree of consciousness and wanting to have that shift, wanting to have that kind of relating?
So I would ask, what is that wanting about? So that it comes back to myself. Instead of going out, I want a relation, or I want this, or I want that. So what sits beneath the wanting? So that would be my first question, just to investigate, inquire into that.
Okay.
No right, no wrong. Very important. Inquiring, if there's an opinion or judgment around it, it's useless already. but just to see what's actually underneath that wanting.
Connection. Say the person, you know, that's the response that I can imagine. Connection, the yearning for connection.
Connection. So, and how does it feel when I come back here? That would be my next question. When I'm noticing, wow, under that wanting, there's actually, I would love to feel connected. So just coming back to here, even a step deeper. How does that feel? How is that? What wants? Yeah. How would you answer to that?
Let me imagine this.
Yes.
Feels empty.
It feels empty. Okay. And is that a full emptiness or an empty emptiness? What do you feel?
It's kind of like a mucky, like old.
Okay. And is it possible to feel your feet in that? And is it possible to feel your legs in that? Is it possible to feel your womb in that?
It gets all swirly.
And a big smile comes.
Yeah, I've asked these questions before, and this one, you know, that usually is the case, like this feeling of swirling and being confused. Confusion comes.
Yes.
Yeah. Confusion.
Beautiful.
And the nervous system starts to churn.
Absolutely.
Some anxiety starts to bubble.
Yeah.
So Prajna, you know, like I'll just let me take it in the way Mike and I explore a little differently here. But no big deal. It's on the same page.
I'm imagining, just to give an example.
Yeah.
So I'll try to.
No, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
So, wonderful what you're doing.
So for me, you know, like if we look at Ramana Maharishi's invitation, his invitation was whatever arises, you ask who's aware of it. And the answer has to be I am, and then you bring your attention back to that I, that sense of awareness. So that's exquisite. I mean, that invitation drops us, or it brings the recognition that awareness is always here, and awareness, the whole universe is appearing in that awareness. Now, to me, the next step is there's such habits as soon as we get into what we call social connection. So right now, as we're resting here, there's the senses bringing in information. You know, like we receive the impressions of this moment through our senses. So the whole universe is in this moment an experience, appearing in awareness. Now we're in the habit, because of language of seeing things as objects. But in actuality, if we look very carefully, we can see that everything is actually just information appearing in this moment. If you look, where does seeing actually happen? We can say it happens somewhere in the brain, but it's actually it's in awareness. In awareness. Same thing with all the senses. So at this moment, what you call me as an experience to you, what I call you as an experience to me, and so often we look at an expression of totality as the patterns that are playing there, and our system, once it perceives the patterns, it starts to defend itself against the patterns, because all patterns are a bit weird.
Yeah.
But if we see, look, that actually what's here, the patterns are just patterns. They're not a big deal. They're not the person at all. There's awareness there.
Yes.
And those patterns are welcome here. There's nothing that needs defending against. And like the eyes kind of get a little bit softer, and you know, like the light of that being is just welcome in. You know, in other words, the experience of that person is already in. All defenses are useless, because you really experience that being fully in awareness. And defending just adds another layer to it. So
Yeah.
in the noticing of where there's defending going on in the system, which is so habitual and so used to it, it's hard to even notice it because we're so used to it. It doesn't even show up on our radar.
Right.
So,
And then it seems then like if I even let that happen for a moment, it feels like then certain ways of, well, just like things start to close off. There's a closing off.
exactly.
Yeah. And if I just relax back,
yeah, there's just
openness.
complete connection. There's no boundaries basically.
Yeah. And then there's also, if you just relax too, just listening, there also feels like that whole idea of wanting kind of softens. It doesn't feel like anything's missing.
Exactly.
Nothing is missing.
Yeah.
And so then it takes it all out of that whole game.
Yes.
So then you would say
It does.
in that, like in my experience too, and with that, is that then it's almost as if something gets integrated then into the nervous system. Yes?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you could say what happens is like we start meeting each other, we start feeling each other as an expression of totality.
Yes.
So like
From a
in
fullness,
this meeting, I can feel your womanness, and my body can respond to that. And then there's just like, usually what freaks people out is then, well, how do I decide who I actually have sex with, and who, like, how do you move in life? Because in one way you could actually be, you are, everyone's the beloved. You could be lovers with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, there is a way of, and I think for the different people it'll be different. It's just like, because we're trying to get something through sexuality, you're trying to get,
Yes.
it just becomes, oh wow, yeah, that's beautiful. I can feel the sexual component of the meeting, and it's innocent, it's beautiful. It doesn't have to go anywhere, it doesn't have to do anything. And then you can see more clearly, okay, well, this would be something that's useful, or I don't even know what terms we would use there. It's just like, but it's not coming from lack anymore. It's not coming from trying to get something. It's coming from overflow, just, like
Right.
all different...
Just sharing. Speaking then about the sexuality part. So this question came from a few people. So I think it's something that wants to be explored. So it's kind of funny. How do you have
That's a subject.
Yeah, how do you have good sex and good relating at the same time?
Yeah.
Like so there's some kind of idea that if so relating is one thing, but then if we take it into sexuality or into sex, then it becomes something else. And then a whole another dynamic starts to happen. And then there's confusion about how to be with that.
Yeah.
So let's explore that.
Yeah, a quick answer, also just from my own experience. The moment there's an idea how it should be, I'm off the shore. So also my experience, sometimes it's like, whoa, and sometimes it's like, okay, just my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the moment we're trying to have it be a certain way,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, with anything,
it's
with
like-
anything.
With anything,
it's like,
with anything,
Mhm.
with anything.
like, for me, because it's the same like as we meet, like everything that's hasn't come to peace yet is welcome here.
Yes.
So, why would it be different in sexuality?
Right. So then it would be then the old habit in our culture is as soon as sex happens, then
Yeah.
the relationship takes a shift, and it some kind
Or
of
it goes into trying to please or trying to be good or trying to, like all of that
and
stuff.
ownership. It goes into
Yeah.
also
Ownership.
ownership. That's
Yes.
the biggest problem right there.
Yeah.
And the pressure, if we stay together like this, you really have to please me, or I have to please you. So pressure comes up very quickly because we're not allowed to go anywhere else anymore.
Right.
Isn't it? It's
Yes.
like, now you're stuck for the rest of your life with this. And if that is not good, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Yeah, so
all of that happens.
All of that, yeah.
So again, it's just the presence.
Yeah.
Just the
allowing
presence.
all of the different parts to be there, all of the different old habits to be
All
seen,
of
to be met.
All the dysfunctionality, everything.
Yeah.
If that, if having great sex is more important than that,
Oh,
then I don't know. You might as well buy a book and try to do it.
yeah.
Yeah, you might as well hire somebody, right?
No, we do that.
Yeah.
We do all of that, don't
Yeah,
we?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Everything
mean,
is
and
there.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It's like,
No,
that
nothing wrong.
that can be
Certain
how it
stage
is
of
for now,
journey. Certain stage of the journey, yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess it just, as long as, you're clear about that, then there won't be hurt in it, it seems. If you're clear from the start.
There will be.
There will be a lot of hurt in there.
Anyway.
Yes. All the hurt you never.
Well, there's a hope. There's a hope, I think, that if it's all spoken up front.
I mean, with luck, you can hold hands in it.
Yes.
That's what I love very much. And that's getting bigger and bigger in being together in the same way, in a way. Is that whenever there is a pain, it's not taken personally, and it's like, oh yes, I see something is touched, and wow, if you want to, I love to be here with you in that.
Yes.
So that it's not mine and it's not yours. It's like a third entity, if you want to call it.
I like that. Yes.
Which is so important, because otherwise there's something to fix or change.
Yeah.
If it becomes mine, then I know the other one tries to fix and change, and it hates it, doesn't it? It gets wild when it needs to be fixed and changed. The killer comes out.
Yes.
It has to be taken out in a way. Okay, this is the field. This is showing up here in the field. Can we be embodied present to that? Without making it anything, can we be here with that?
That's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that. We do that even in our family. We even call like our family, we call it the field. Just to not even call it a family. And whenever anybody comes into the field, there's kind of like a way you can be in it, where we're all in support of each other, playing these different roles haphazardly sometimes, and sometimes well, and sometimes, everything that happens.
Exactly.
So the same kind of thing. I really love this idea of just taking the word out, relationship. It actually gives so much permission.
Space.
And then you're not looking for anything in particular. There's nothing to look for.
Yes,
it can
it's
be
alive.
completely unknown, as it is anyway.
As it is anyway, yes.
And then you can be surprised. And it all already right away, that adds fun to it. It takes out this kind of anxiety that all of us can have about, when we feel this yearning and we're like, don't know how to go about it, especially when you get a little bit older and if you've been out of relating for a long time.
And also there's this huge confusion around, like one of the spiritual precepts is that, wanting is suffering. So when this yearning comes up, there's a huge kind of disownment of that, disowning it.
Yes.
Rather than really being present to it, because, it's like, wow, there shouldn't be wanting, there shouldn't be this yearning.
Try that.
Right, but wanting, just the sense of wanting in itself
yearning.
is aliveness. It feels
It's
like
alive.
you're
Yeah.
alive. Like I love to want. It's like
Yeah.
I
Yes,
remember a time of
exactly.
not wanting. I remember
Oh
a time,
man.
the phase of not wanting and feeling like being back in a cave and not
Yeah.
wanting and not liking and all of those
Yeah.
things. I couldn't wait to want again. You know, and because it's aliveness.
Yes, it's
It is.
alive.
It's like your juices, your life force is alive.
Is there a distinction? Let's just look carefully. Is there a distinction between wanting and yearning?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Let's look.
Let's look, yeah. So, I mean, because like a lot of times this wanting seems like, to me anyway, that the mind has an idea of what it's wanting.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Like
yearning is just, yearning.
It's more free for
It's
you.
just for me. Just the way it feels to me. It's just like this yearning. You don't even know what it is. It's to be home or something. It's not tied to something. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
it's
how I
just-
feel wanting. I feel
Wanting,
wanting,
Yeah, so
like
I
yearning,
I heard it.
like
I
yearning,
heard
like
it like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
no worries. But I wanted
to
to
just-
put that,
Yeah, no, it's important.
otherwise,
it's good.
think wanting a Ferrari or wanting great sex
Something-
or wanting
right, like a
relationship.
material thing, like an object, like it's
Or
an
an
idea that you can, conquer something.
Yeah.
Very different.
Good to make that distinction. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and then
then
also
doesn't-
what you said about what the Buddha said, or was it the Buddha?
Yeah.
Well, the Buddha also said that life is suffering. That was like
Yes.
one of the very first teachings, and I love that teaching because, I mean, it's not all that he said, but it allows for there to be disappointment, tragedy, illness, death, all of these things, falling down, getting up. I mean, everything then is part of it. So I mean, not that only suffering, but sometimes in our disappointment or whatever you want to call it, that's where our greatest seeing can happen. To really see something clearly for the first time, even like
Yeah.
I think that more, myself and a lot of people that I know, more of their growth and maturation has come out of those periods of really feeling pushed back by, coming up and having to get pushed back, if you know what I mean. I don't want to call it a tragedy but being hurt, like when life hurts,
Yeah,
when
it
you
hurts,
bump
yeah.
up, when you bump
Yeah.
up in whatever way, there's so many ways we bump up in life. And
Yeah.
that,
And
and then to allow it.
Yeah, it's interesting too because a lot of times when hurt happens, we say I feel hurt, and the difference between I feel hurt and hurt is happening is immense. Because if we
Totally.
really look deeply, it's not personal to you. It's like
It's a
we didn't ask
sensation.
for it.
Yeah.
Next thing, there's hurt there, and and
It's
it
just-
hurts.
Yeah, it's energy. It's
And
Yeah.
it's not personal.
it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another big one that we have. We have this thing of, like if you've been around spiritual circles, people talk about identification. And we have this idea that there's someone that identifies. But if you look deeply, identification just happens by itself, and then a sense of I arises and we think we did it. But nobody actually does it. It's an automatic, unconscious movement. Nobody
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it's just
So
happening.
then, it's just happening. So this whole idea, like I identified, I'm so bad, I'm not spiritual enough, I'm not there yet, and all this stuff. It's a joke.
Yeah. There's a couple of people in the group who have had what they feel really beautiful relating and taken a loved one, the beloved, all the way to the end of their life. She felt like it took a long time where she just met her true love and just wonders, will true love happen again? It's just like this is the yearning to meet the lover again, to be able to already you can see everything is never going to be the same again, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to get the same thing over again.
Never.
It's constantly changing. But
Yeah.
what would you say to this person? I would love to hear what you have to say for her.
Yeah, I would say that if the yearning is the beloved, and that as long as it gets, like this is the thing where it moves into wanting, because then it moves into something that's not fresh anymore. It's like just the yearning then seems something to get over or to get past. But when the yearning is truly embraced, you find that that beloved is right here. And, maybe it'll take the form of, I mean, ultimately we can have connection with many, we are connected to the entire universe in this moment. So,
yes. One last question, and you kind of covered it, because I just looked there, and it's going to be the same answer, I already know, but let's clarify it again. So when the shadow shows up, different shadows, and the first instinct is to run. So how do you stay in the openness when the shadow is presenting itself? Different shadows, unconscious material.
Can I go here?
Yeah, but I also like to.
Okay, so we'll give you both a chance. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So instead of trying to stay in the openness, to recognize that even the closedness is appearing in the openness. So it's not a question of trying to stay open. It's like honoring the response of the body. If the body closes, honoring it. Deeply appreciating it for being there. So recognizing, okay, wow, this is the body's response that's appearing in ultimate openness, that awareness. And honoring that bodily response. Okay, this is fight, flight, freeze, because that's all that happens. Is the system will go into some existential movement. It'll go into a way of trying to survive it. And instead of fighting with that, just honoring it. Okay, wow, I see you just trying to help me to survive, yeah? So honoring that movement and then checking in the present moment, is there an actual threat here? Because what's happening is it's touching some old information where it was, like millions of times it's felt as if it was existential, but without ever really checking, is there an actual danger in this moment? And the answer is just yes, there is, or no, there isn't. Not trying to change it, fix it, get rid of it, just noticing, is there an actual danger? And if you can see that there isn't an actual danger, the nervous system usually starts to calm down. It starts to resource itself. It starts to just relax. And then very important is to notice when the system does relax. Nothing's changed outside. The system just starts to relax from survival mode. Oh, I survived. So then that part of the brain that's been holding it, that's impossible to be present with, starts to recognize, actually, it's not such a big deal.
And would you say it gets a memory of that, a memory of the relaxation? So
there's a whole rewiring that happens.
Yes, I feel it. Yeah. Okay, good. That's super clear.
Just like to add a few little things. When we go that way, like Isaac just described, what actually happens is that the conscious mind works together with the reptilian brain for the first time. Instead of having the ideas how it should be and working against the physical response that's actually there, it's all of a sudden as if a caregiver comes in and says, it's okay, I see, you really want to run. And if you need to, then let's just remove ourselves even out of the situation. And we can come back when we feel safe and centered again. So really giving that permission to the body, because it's responding like that. The body is responding in a certain way. So if it has to stay in a situation, but all the chemicals are running and are ready for running, it's torture. It's actually torture. It's actually keeping ourselves in a traumatic experience which re-traumatizes the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why if that can come in, that the conscious mind just acknowledges what's going on and gives it permission to even move if it needs to move, or just recognize, the rewiring will happen by itself.
And to see that when your body does it, it's not you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's your body doing it.
It's unconscious.
You didn't ask it to do that. It does it by itself.
Yes. And the other really wonderful point that both of you made too is that all of it's already happening in this openness. It's already happening in awareness. You know, that's the constant that is always.
That's always nice.
Yeah. So that's the remembering, you know, that, and that when a person has that, I think probably just in time it becomes more solid, or, you know, you can feel more more anchored in that.
Yes, exactly.
And it happens.
Yeah. It's like the body also learns it.
Yes.
A learning. It's a learning process.
A learning and a rewiring of the brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deep appreciation for these really beautiful questions.
Yes.
For the exquisite way that you've held space for this interview. And love to all.
Thank you so much for taking the time. And I know you're probably going to be coming to California this year, are you?
Yes, yeah. Just a week.
Second half of the year.
Will you come to Berkeley again?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody can know that who's here in California, and maybe come and visit and continue the conversation.
Yes. And the information for that is on our website, isaacshapiro.org.
Yes, and I put it. It's
on the schedule.
Yes. And I'll put it on my website too, or it is there.
Wonderful.
So everybody will get it. Thank you so much. I love both of you so much. Love to everybody.
So much love. So much love. Thank you, Prajna.
Thank you. All right.
And lots of love to the audience.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye for now.
Ciao.
Ciao.